Assalamu alaikum students. On destroying books, we read this chapter last time. I hope आप लोगों ने इसको दोबारा पढ़ा होगा. Now let's have a look at the questions that may be asked about it. Question number 1 is, what sort of books were presented by the British public to soldiers? It means वो किस किस्म की किताबें थीं जो कि ब्रिटिश पब्लिक की तरफ से सोल्जर्स को तोहफे के तौर पे भेजी जाती थी. Obviously, girls, these were not the very valuable books, although the writer says that most of them were suitable. Most of the books sent to the troops were suitable, but some people sent them magazines 20 years old, some sent them guides on the Lake District, and some sent them back numbers of Whitaker's Almanac. So these types of books were mostly presented to the troops by the people. Question number 2 is, was was it interest in soldiers that prompted people's action, or was it wish to get rid of the useless books? इस क्वेश्चंस का बच्चों मतलब ये है कि क्या लोग वाकई ट्रूप्स को अच्छी बुक्स तोहफे के तौर पे भेजना चाहते थे या फिर वो अपनी किताबों से छुटकारा पाना चाहते थे. Obviously, they were not in a great wish to send the soldiers gifts, but the real reason was that they wanted to get rid of their useless books that might be accumulated in their homes. So people had no interest in the troops. They sent them books because they wanted to get rid of these books. Let's move to the next question. Why should the bad books be destroyed? The question is very simple, and as the writer has already told you in the chapter, that the bad books should be destroyed. Now, what is meant by the bad books? Bad books are those books that are useless in the homes, in the houses of the people. And there are two main benefits of destroying them. Number one is it makes room for the good and new books. It also saves one's ears from the trouble of storing them and sorting them out. So एक तो उनका फ़ायदा ये होता है कि अगर उनको निकाल दिया जाता है तो नई और अच्छी बुक्स के लिए जगह बन जाती है, और एक उसका फ़ायदा ये है कि आने वाले उनके बच्चे, नेक्स्ट जनरेशन्स, they are saved from the botheration of storing or sorting them out. So this is the reason that the bad books should be destroyed in any case. The question number 5. Why could not the author burn the unwanted books? Very simple question. The writer has already given you to the reason why wasn't he able to destroy the books on the or burn them. The author could not burn the unwanted books because he had no cooking range, and he could not burn them on the gas cooker, or he could not do it by putting the leaf after leaf in his study fire. So this was not possible for him to simply burn the books and get rid of them. Next question is, how did he decide to get rid of them? So after all, the writer made a very strange decision. He decided to get rid of them by throwing them into the river. So he stuffed them into a sack and went to the river to throw them. Next question is describe the author's midnight venture to throw the books in the river and the suspicion which his action were likely to arouse. So these were the fears that came to his mind afterwards. When he decided to get rid of his books, he didn't think about this. But when he started his venture, or when he got his sack of books on his shoulder, he thought about it, that what can be there, what problems can arise in his way. First of all, he decided to do it at the midnight. That was the thing that could make him uh, suspicious. At midnight, the author stuffed his books in a sack. He shouldered them and went to fling them into the river. He was terribly frightened at the sight of the policeman and stranger. At last, he threw the books into the river after many difficulties. After many difficulties, after many thoughts that came to his mind during during his way from his house to the Chelsea Bridge. So he was having different sort of situations. He was guilty conscious at his heart, and he thought that what could be thought about him when someone catches him, or when someone finds him putting those books into the river, and he may be investigated about it. And even though he was able to face the investigation, or to answer the policeman's questions, but he wasn't able to make it clear, or to prove it, that these were just the books and nothing else. He could be suspected, and he could be punished for that, and he could be put to the jail. So these were all the suspicions that came to his mind, and he was very much terrified at some times during this venture. He was in the situation to do or not to do. So he wasn't able to be decisive, and he just, even at arriving the bridge, he tried to do it, but he wasn't able to do it just at the last moment, and he got back when he was just about to put those books into the river. So this was the situation. He was guilty conscious, and at the same time he was frightened about many situations that he had to that he could face, that he could have to face. So this was the reason that many times he tried to do, and many times he got back from doing that act, but at last he did it. Now let's move to the next question. How did he muster up his courage at last to fling them into the river? The writer was hesitant to throw them. Then he abused himself for his cowardice. At last he mustered up courage and threw the sack into the river. So first of all, he was hesitant, and then he abused himself for this cowardice, and he rebuked himself by saying that, what if you go to the gallows about that act, many people who were better than you, who had gone to the gallows. And in this way he mustered up his courage by taking himself by the collar, and then and then he did it, and then he threw that sack into the river. This was the question number 8, and students, let's move to the question number 9. Did he come to have a feeling for those books once he had got rid of them? Yes, he was sad after throwing the books, and this was when whole of this venture was over and he was getting back to his home. He was feeling a little sorry for those books. He thought that poor books, uh, thought about the poor books met a fate worse than they deserve. So, what is meant by this term, that the books met a fate worse than they deserve? Obviously, the books are not meant to be thrown into the river. The books are meant to be read. So, what did he do with them? This was not an appropriate act, but he did it because he had to do that, and there were some situations that were compelling him to do that. So he was feeling sorry for those books now. Question number 10. What did the writer think about the splash? The writer thought that people would catch him. They would think that he had thrown a baby into the river, or that was a dead body of a baby. Therefore, he was afraid of the splash of the sack. Students, he was very much afraid of the situation. In fact, splash is the a sort of thing, uh, because till at that time, when the books had gone under the water and a splash could be there, and when at that time he was asked about the books, asked about the splash, he wasn't able to, he wouldn't have been able to make it clear that what did he throw into the river. So this was the situation, in fact not the splash. उसकी situation उस वक्त तक ऐसी हो चुकी होती कि वो लोगों को ये क्लियर करने के काबिल नहीं रहता कि ये स्प्लैश किस चीज़ का था, कि उसने दरिया में क्या चीज़ फेंकी है. So this was the reason that he was very much very much terrified about the situation. Now let's move to the next question. This is very simple question, and these give the names of the books that the writer threw into the river. These are just the name of the books, and he had given in the last paragraph of this essay some name of those books that were Ode to Diana, Sonnet to Ethel, and Dramas on Love of Launcelot, and stanzas on a first glimpse of Venus. These are some titles of the books that are mentioned by the writer in the last paragraph. Now the next question. What did the writer think about when he saw the policeman on the way? When he saw a policeman on the way, he became afraid. He thought that he would consider him a thief and arrest him. But the policeman did not take any notice of him. So this was a very simply narrated by the poet, that that the policeman, his experience with the policeman and another experience with a tram, they didn't take any notice of him. So these are some questions that may be asked in your question paper. Students, you have to do it. The thing that you have to do it now is that you should prepare these questions or these question answers for the purpose of your examination. Better uh, write it down in your notebook and then try to learn it by heart. So that is the better way. आप लोगों को करना ये है कि आपने इनको प्रिपेयर करना है अपने एग्जामिनेशन के लिए और ऑब्वियसली क्लास टेस्ट के लिए. तो एनी क्वेश्चन अबाउट इट? थैंक यू. अल्लाह हाफिज़.